he's actually trying to tackle the debt here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and they have to, because otherwise there'll be a huge global financial crisis. I mean, you know, $38 trillion, right? It's 110% of GDP or something. That's much higher than Australia's debt, relatively. The US, of course, because it's so big and powerful, it can go on for much longer than other countries. But at some point, it's not sustainable.
You just mentioned inflation in the US compared to Australia. So 2.4% in the US, and news today that inflation is now sitting in the past 12 months at 3.8% in Australia. Why do you, as an economist, think that it is so much higher, and is this because of the Albanese government?
Well, it certainly is partly. I mean, there are budget deficits as far as the eye can see, and certainly government demand plays a big role. We've had the fastest growth in government spending since the Whitlam years, except for the pandemic. 27% of GDP now, I believe, the federal government is, which is extraordinary. That's obviously boosting demand. And it's partly their responsibility. Our inflation rate, I think, is more or less the highest in the OECD.
Are you worried about it?
Yes, of course, because it hits every single Australian's wage. I mean, who's getting a 4% pay rise every year? Certainly not me. Maybe you are, Sharri, but I'm not. And that's a 4% cut in your living standards every single year. So it's a very serious problem, and the government just kind of hand waves it away as if it's not important. But I think they're going to pay for it at the ballot box.
Now, I was watching Chris Kenny's program earlier this evening, and he had Pauline Hanson on, and she said, because Chris was quizzing her on one of her new policies of income splitting, and she said, well, that bloke Creighton, she couldn't remember your first name, but she said that economist Creighton endorses this policy. So what do you think of income splitting as an economic policy?
Well, she must have been referring to my tweet about the fact that the One Nation has more policies on their website than the Liberal Party, which is true. But the policy of income splitting is reasonable. The US does it. You know, you either file as a single or you file as a married couple, and that has tax consequences. And
so if you file as a married couple, that means the tax rate is lower?
Yeah, so basically if there's only one income earner, you basically divide the income across the two people, and because of the progressive rate, that means you get two tax-free thresholds instead of one. So it makes a big difference to the average tax rate. That's something we could do in Australia. I think it's probably a good idea. It does cost a lot of money, though, in terms of lost revenue. So you have to make cuts. The other good thing about One Nation is they at least have the courage to point out on their website the things they would cut. You know, $20, $30 billion a year of climate change nonsense they would cut, and that's what needs to be said, I think, by the Liberal Party for them to have similar policies.
All right, Adam Creighton, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Sharri.